Good morning. Welcome to the second press conference of the Green Party of the United States here in Reading, Pennsylvania, featuring candidates for President of the United States. In other words, candidates who are seeking the Green Party's nomination next year at our national convention. And our first candidate is Dan Imperato. Here's the mic.
Okay. I guess the vowels came to the I, huh? I for independent and G for green. How are you today? My name is Daniel Imperato. I am the leading independent presidential candidate in the United States. I've been campaigning for the last 2 years, both nationally and internationally. I'm a very serious contender. I plan on winning the White House. The reason why I'm here today is I was invited to participate with the Green Party to seek the nomination of the Green Party to, most importantly for me, increase ballot access capabilities and also expose myself to the Green Party. I will say honestly that I am an independent. I am studying the Green Party platform. I do agree with the majority of the Green Party platform, but I also do agree with other platforms. I'm a real independent presidential candidate, and I will say this. If you people vote me in and find a way to get me in the White House, I will deploy the most important principles of the Green Party because I am a green person. I will say this. I do not believe that any third party at this particular moment will have the ability to put a president in the White House because we need 40 million votes from the American people to get there. So I'm doing everything I can to get support from everyone, including Democrats, Republicans, Greens, Libertarians, Constitutions, Reforms, because I'm going to win the White House seat. All I need is ballot access. And I'm working diligently with any party that wants to represent my interest to get that ballot access. I'm willing to put money up for it. I'm willing to work hard for it. I'm willing to pull people together to help the party. But to be quite frank, I'm here to win the White House seat. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get me there. Thank you very much. Daniel Imperato. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Dan. Next we will hear from Jesse Johnson.
Hello, thank you, and welcome. My name is Jesse Johnson. I am presently I'm the state chairman of the Mountain Party of West Virginia. The mountain state of West Virginia is sort of a microcosm for all the rest of the problems that we face in the nation and the world at large. It's somewhat of a third world state, and it is constantly in an economic or ecological challenge for its very survival as well as its economic survival. I was a 2004 candidate for governor in the state of West Virginia. I ran arguably the most successful campaign in the nation in 2004 for governor. And in 2006, I ran a principled campaign against, or with, depending on how you look at it, Robert C. Byrd, the senator, longest serving senator in the history of the United States. And I took no monies in, I spent no money, and still got about 2% of the vote. So what can I lend you as a presidential candidate? My experience and my character. I've been a straight shooter all my life. I come from a long line of police officers. I look at evidence before I make decisions. And I think that's something that we could use in the White House. I also, I did not serve in the United States military. I fell within that small area when no one had to register, and there was hope that the world would be a peaceful one. And I'm very proud of that fact, that, that I did not have to serve, that our nation was not under siege, and our nation was not out spreading democracy like peanut butter. It's rather organic, and it spreads by itself if you just simply show that you're a good example to the world. So I am seeking the Green Party nomination. I live green. I come from, as I said, almost heaven, West Virginia, wild, wonderful state that the governor that I ran against decided to change to be open for business. Took his cue from the president after 9/11. And so now business at large in West Virginia is blowing the tops off of the mountains to supply all the rest of this great nation with energy. And it's incredibly wasteful, it's incredibly destructive, and it's a very poor stewardship for future generations. I have an energy plan, I have a foreign policy plan, and I think the keys are education and the economy. And those are where we really need to focus in this nation. And once we do that, many other pieces will fall into place. I believe you lead in this world by example. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse. Next, Jerry Kahn.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jerry Kahn. I'm a Green Party member from New York City, and I am a candidate, of course, for the Green Party nomination for president. I ran for New York City Council 3 times. Most recently, under New York's fusion law, I ran against a candidate who was running both as a Democrat and as a Republican on both lines. And I take that to mean that that's evidence that the Democrats and Republicans sometimes are literally the same party and really don't have any differences between them at all. And I'm running on that basis for the presidency or for the nomination of the Green Party. The Green Party absolutely has to represent, has to be absolutely independent of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. It really has no reason for being unless it is absolutely independent. And what I mean by that is that last time around, it has to be admitted, in 2004, the official candidate for the presidency for the Green Party basically had a plan to not get in the way of the Democrats in the battleground states, the very states where we might have some effect on the outcome. And to me, this was a repudiation of a great progressive legacy that was established in 2000. I think we need to get back to our roots, and in that spirit, I'm also calling, and have called since April when I announced my campaign, for Ralph Nader and Cynthia McKinney, 2 excellent, excellent activists, to enter the race for the president and for the Green Party nomination or endorsement in 2008. Let me say also that, just very quickly, my website is kahnforpresident.net, K-A-N-N-F-O-R, president.net, and there's a lot of, I think, pretty good material on there, not all of it written by me. Some of it, for example, by Peter Camejo, whom people know, ran for president, ran for governor of California 3 times as a Green Party candidate. And other stuff on that website includes this questionnaire to other candidates about what kind of a campaign will you run? Will you run an independent candidacy, or will you, run a limited campaign? Again, it does not fully give the American people the choice that they need. The Democrats and Republicans, it's not a matter of, how shall I say, it's not rhetoric anymore. We have a tremendous opportunity in 2007 and 2008 to step up to the plate and represent the 100 million people who do not even vote in this country. And if they don't vote, not because they're lazy or stupid, but because they have no choice. They don't want to legitimize a system that basically just represents rich people and corporations, big corporations. That has to be challenged. And I think the Green Party has shown in various ways, Rich Whitney's excellent campaign in Illinois and other things, with other triumphs and progress that's been made by this party, and it's held together all these years. I really think that we have a tremendous opportunity, we have tremendous credibility, and now is the time for us to get behind, if not one of us, then a candidate like a Ralph Nader or Cynthia McKinney, who has name recognition, but more than that, credibility with the American public, with the people. And I think that if we really want to, we really have an opportunity to completely transform American politics. I think we've got to just abandon the cynicism that says, oh, people, they don't really know what's good for them and they won't vote for their own interests and so forth. We are the party that has to step forward and say, no, now is the time when the people can take power over their own government. And I think if we stand up to super rich and corporations in this country, as we have before now, I think we will attract a lot more than 5% of the vote. And I think that that's something we just really have to grab hold of this time. And I urge y'all to join me in that tragedy. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Gail Parker. Gail.
I'm here to recruit Greens to run for office. We need 435 candidates for U.S. Representative in 2008, and we need 33 candidates for U.S. Senate in 2008. Our campaign for the nomination of the Green Party for U.S. President is issue-driven. Now, every year, 44,000 Americans are killed on our roadways. Every year, 330,000 Americans are injured on the roadways. Every year, rail is safer, and it cuts dependency on foreign oil. We see building high-speed rail nationwide as a positive solution that lets us get out of the war in Iraq. It cuts our dependency on foreign oil so that we can get out of the war. We have targeted 17 states in 2007 to get candidates on the ballot. My highest priority for our campaign is North Carolina, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kansas, West Virginia, New Hampshire, and New Jersey. And those are the states that our campaign plans to be working on the hardest and the soonest. So I'm here to ask you all to join us. Join us in our campaign for more trains and less traffic, and for more candidates and less apathy. We need ordinary Americans to stand up and get on the ballot. We need fiscally conservative and socially responsible policies. Join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. We will next hear from Joe Schreiner. Joe.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. You know what, I had this really good opening to this talk that I wrote a little while ago, and I've had to change it in the last 10, 15 minutes. I was walking by my wife in the back who was reading a children's book to my 4-year-old son, Jonathan. And the book, dinosaurs. Okay? Now, she was reading to Jonathan this paragraph. The Triassic period, the time in the Earth's history between 248 and 213 million years ago, that the Earth looked very different. All the land of the world was joined together in one piece, separated by seas and oceans as it is today. The land mass of the Triassic period was called, and I didn't know this, the Pangaea. Is that right?
Pangea.
Yeah, see? There's that average Joe deal going right there. Period. Now, my wife paraphrased the next paragraph for our son, and what she said to our son was that, then, Jonathan, the Earth started to break apart. And it formed a continent. So right now, the Earth's breaking apart again. Only how it's breaking apart is ecological. I really believe we stand at a precipice. Now, as far as Jonathan and my daughter Sarah and my son Joseph go, it's my belief that if things continue to go the way they're going right now, they're not going to have a world left for them or for their kids. And I don't think it's time now to sit back in an ingratiated fashion work to change this. I think that we need to make some huge changes right now, for the kids' sake. I am running for president as your typical average concerned Midwestern parent. I am concerned about this catastrophic climate change deal. I am concerned about nuclear proliferation that might not leave a world for our children either. I am concerned about my kids doing okay in English class. But I'm more concerned about my kids these days being shot to death in English class. So my wife and I gave up our jobs and took to the roads of America 15 years ago, looking for answers to these and other pressing issues of the day. And we found them. We found them in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, and High Springs, Florida, and Monterey, California. We found those answers. What's more, for the past 8 years, we have traveled 80,000 miles campaigning and getting a message out about these answers. Our stories appeared in more than 2,000 newspapers, 175 regional network news shows, all kinds of radio, and we were on a show called Voice of the People in Hibbings, Minnesota, cable access show, with a viewership, I'm sure, of 50 people. It was a good week. We reached people in Hibbings, we reached people in Rome, Oregon, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We've reached people all over the country. And what we're doing is we're planting seeds. And they are green seeds. That is, seeds for environmental change, seeds for peace, seeds for economic justice, each very much in line with the Green Party values. And seeds very much in line with not only saving the planet, but creating a new kind of prosperity, a green prosperity for all. An addendum, very short. As Jess was talking about, our family lives green too. We bicycle everywhere in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'll tell you, that's not the most bicycle-friendly place on the planet. We have a Kyoto Protocol home zone where we have a sign up in front of our yard, and we don't use air conditioning, we turn the heat back and we wear sweaters, we buy locally, we do all that stuff. And I promise today at this Green Party convention that when we get to the White House, we're going to turn the White House into Kyoto Protocol homes. There'll be solar cells on the roof, there'll be a wind turbine. We're going to create a permaculture in the front yard. We think that grass is just ridiculous. Probably put some of the turf building in Connecticut out of business, Greg. And this is my promise, and I know that this is going to work, we're going to sell organic tomatoes to the friends in the front to spend down the national debt. So, vote for me, and we're balancing the budget in a month or two, depending on the crop. So, thanks.
Thanks, Joe. We'll next hear from Kat Swift.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you all for coming. My name is Kat Swift. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I've been kind of encouraged, well, not kind of, I've been encouraged by friends and family for the last decade to do this, and I'm finally old enough. So that's pretty much the motivation, has been people encouraging me to run as a presidential candidate. I recently learned when running a city council campaign in the 8th largest city in the United States that even conservative, traditional Republican voters love our issues of instant runoff voting and public financing and ending big corporate control over their lives, because in San Antonio everything pretty much is controlled by a set group of men, white men, who run San Antonio. And the best way to get out to people is running campaigns. In Texas, we have to run ballot access campaigns all the time, but the best way to deal with it is to get out and talk to people. And then you find out that people agree with your issues, especially if you can get them on the things that they're most important, that is most important to them. I've been active with the Green Party since 1999 when I moved back to Texas and became a non-apathetic voter again. I hadn't voted since I was 18, and then I got involved with the Green Party Step Up in Canada and realized that there might be something worth voting for out there. if we got people who actually lived up to the values and the platform of the Green Party. And so I've been working on that for the last 8 years. And I will continue to do so. And my campaign is basically to try to reach out to those apathetic voters who are registered but just don't ever go to vote. We have like a 20% turnout in Texas for a presidential election. And also to seek out people who aren't registered to vote. I've had incredible progress converting non-registered voters over the last 3 or 4 years. Just by virtue of saying that I was running for president, they said they would give up their principal objection to voting and register and vote for me. So I encourage everybody to get out and talk to people as much as possible and spread the word about the Green Party. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Tingosian. I'm the founder and CEO of Angel Vision Technology, probably the most recognized interactive media company in the United States. I'm also the founder of Reset America. And I am astonished that I live on a planet where the people running it don't care about our sustainability or our survivability. The two-party system is to blame. We must work together to get rid of the two-party system in this perpetual campaign that continues with the Democrats and Republicans. The recent Time magazine poll, 67% of people don't resonate with our party. This is our chance to displace this very destructive two-party system. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to compliment you or congratulate you for finding the strength and courage to stand up and run for president, because I don't think that's an easy thing at all to do, to make yourself do. With that said, with so many things set against you, in terms of Republicans and Democrats and the whole power structure, what do you think is going to get through to people? And I can, if anybody wants to respond to this, that's fine. But what single thing can you do? Okay, thanks.
I'd be happy to.
And you can step right up to the podium there.
I don't mean to be greedy, but yeah, no. The fact is, you sort of have to turn that question around and say, well, what's the alternative? The alternative is you can roll over and play dead. You can pretend that everything is fine when everything is not fine. All of these great movements in history have started because a relatively small number of people said, enough's enough, and we have to stand up. And the thing is, what that does is it encourages people all through society to say, oh, somebody had the gumption, the spine, or just the plain rage to say, I've had it, I don't think this is right, and somebody's got to do something about it. I know that sounds rhetorical, but there is no other alternative. The only other alternative is just to say, oh, well, and everything's fine. And that's not an alternative.
Gail Parker, and I would like to add that participating is winning, and failure is impossible. You got to get on the ballot.
Someone else?
Hi, Daniel Morano. The first issue that I have learned pertaining to third-party politics, and a new member in politics, because I've never ran for office in my life, but I've been traveling the world for 30 years, is you need exposure. And I'm working on exposure. We've built a 24-hour broadcast network. We have automatic dialers, email blasting, pop-ups. We've got a very sophisticated telecommunications infrastructure to introduce who we are and what we're doing. The second is that you need a candidate that's willing to support what I call the underdogs, which are the third parties. And the third is that the third parties, I wish to call on all of them to try to come together and to look at what they agree on instead of what they don't agree on. Because if you collectively put together all the third parties vote, it's only about 1 million votes. If those 1 million votes were to surround and push their principal issues and get behind a candidate that is serious, like myself, to actually win the White House. And I believe that that candidate could deploy principles in accordance with each and all desires, because all these parties have good things to say and do. The problem is there hasn't been a real serious independent candidate, and I am that candidate. So hopefully I'll be able to make the Green people happy. Hopefully I'll be able to make the Libertarian people happy, the Reform people. Hopefully I'll be able to get some Democrats and Republicans to vote for me, because I need 40 million votes to get in that White House. But I can tell you, when I get there, I'm a green person myself in life, and I also believe in the restoring the documents of democracy, and I think that we need to come together in society and get behind a man who is willing to defend the principles of good parties and get out there and spread the word. Thank you very much.
Real quickly, I'll add that one of the biggest obstacles I had in my last campaign was people would say, oh, well, you're not the well-funded candidate, you can't win. And what I always told people is we'll win if you vote for me and not for the well-funded candidate. And so we managed to get several organizations turn their endorsement process around and not support the well-funded candidate, because they knew that that's true. Who is going to win depends on who gets voted for. It doesn't necessarily have to do with money, especially if people get that out of their heads and say, hey, well, just because they don't have money doesn't mean I can't vote for them, and that they will win. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Joe, the dinosaur guy.
Michael.
What I think with this is that you need a candidate who is authentic and one that can resonate with a whole lot of people across the country around specific issues. And that, to reiterate, right now, because of the climate change thing going on, and where we stand as far as the precipice, we need to have a lot of people pulling at the heartstrings of the American people around us, and for them to get scared enough. We need a 9/11 when it comes to the environment, we think, at this point. As sad as that is, that's what we need. And just as an addendum, what I think from what I've seen of the Green Party since I've been here, you got a lot of really earnest people that are working overtime, trying to make a difference, and that's not pandering or placating or anything. That's these people doing something to try and make a difference. And this morning, I was at an economic something seminar, and Greg was talking about standing up in a public forum and saying to city planners, you know, we need to look at getting carbon fuel-free buildings in the town. And he said 5 years ago people would just slough that off, and now they're like, well, what's that? You know, and that's what we need. We need a candidate who reflects those issues as far as what the real solutions need to be.
Right on. Jesse Johnson, the Mountain Party of West Virginia, hopefully the new Green affiliate. I agree with everything I've heard here thus far. I have given a number of speeches around the country on common values versus common knowledge. Common values are something that we all share, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, Mountain Party, Libertarians, Green Party, or whether we live in some other country or pray to some other entity. Those are values that we all share. We all respect our surroundings, hopefully, our environment. We all love our parents, our elderly, our children, our communities. And we have to stand up for it. And it's time that we do that. Corporations have created common knowledge. Common knowledge is not real. It is manufactured awareness of your surroundings. And I think we're at that critical mass point where we can burst through and we can all join together and become the real country that we're destined to be. If you take all the independents and the third parties and put them together, then suddenly you have a party. You have a party that's in balance with the other parties. And if that party by being that and by living their common values, if that party can inspire the more than half of this country that doesn't even bother to show up at the polls, then you have a win. And I intend to lead that win. Thank you. Yes?
No one said anything about immigration, the big issue right now. Where do you stand?
I don't know if the immigration green issue answer is going to be what I am about ready to say to you, because I'm not looking for a green answer, but I'm going to enlighten this audience with something that I know personally, and it saddens me. The immigration's problem in this country is not focused on the South American people because it's a South American problem or a border issue. Coming in for political asylum, coming into our country and not being trained properly to defend our republic and to even understand what America is and what the principles of America are. Third world country people come here on political asylum on airplanes every day. No one addresses it. They bring their customs and rules and regulations from their third world countries and they're deploying them in our country, and that's one of the reasons why our country is going down. The fact is that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have consistently found axes to grind on each presidential campaign. And the Republicans had the abortion issue, and that's how they got the Christian vote, and the Democrats now have this environmental issue with Al Gore, and that's where they're going. But the Republican Party has a little bit of a special twist on this one. Our President, George W. Bush, has neglected immigrations in South America since he's been president. It's one of my biggest issues. If you look at my website and my Google me, I've been on the issue for the last 2 years. And I've traveled and lived throughout South America, so I'm very knowledgeable of the area, and I know the leaders of these countries. I'm involved with Chavez and Citgo and Evo Morales in Bolivia and the rest of the leaders in Lula in Brazil. And anyway, this immigration issue is an issue based upon President Bush, the Republican Party, and I need an angle to keep the Republicans in the White House. So I'm going to support Romney to get the woman's. And I'm going to do that so that I can put my brother Jeb in as vice president. But in order to put my brother Jeb in, I have to respect the Spanish people because his wife is Mexican. So this issue for immigrations is all about the Republican Party stating, we're going to give you immigrants everything you want. And they're doing that predominantly and only to win the votes. And they're allowing the Democrats to cut them down on the immigration policy, so that they look bad in front of the public, so that Jeb Bush is being positioned to continue the Bush-Clinton regime. And if we in the United States of America don't realize that we have been held hostage in this country by two families, the Bush family and the Clinton family, and if Romney does not become the presidential candidate of the Republican Party, the Bush family is going to support Hillary Clinton so that Clinton can get in, she can fall, and Jeb can come clean out. And this United States of America is so blinded to what's going on in our society. That's why I've stepped up. That's why I'm running for President of the United States. I speak from experience and knowledge. I hope and pray that the American people realize that I spent my life traveling the globe. I never knew that I was going to do this in my life, although I did campaign when I was a kid, and I did rub elbows with the Kennedys, and I grew up a Democrat, and I moved to Florida. I supported George Bush because I didn't like Kerry. But the fact of the matter is, this is a regime that's become a dictatorship, and we are failing as a nation, internally and externally. And the immigration issue is only a smokescreen to be able to suffice the Spanish population so the Bushes can say, I tried to help you. My brother's wife is Mexican. Thank you very much.
The immigration issue is a wedge issue, just like abortion, as Dan just said. Sorry. And part of the issue is that the Latino community, they have a Congreso coming up actually in October, And even they can't agree with all the various organizations about what the immigration policy should look like. And so there's not a consensus, but if you look at the census numbers, like 98.2% of the population, or 98.8% of the population are immigrants. I mean, we're all immigrants. If you're not a Native American, American Indian, you're an immigrant. And so we demonize people who come over here after us and try to make it a big wedge issue as to control who votes for who. And we need to look at why we have an immigration quote problem as it is. Economic globalization, corporate globalization is part of the problem. And if we address the problem, the core sources of the problem, then the issue of immigration is not really going to be there. I know a lot of people from Mexico who live in where I live, and they don't want to be here, but they can't work where they're from, and so they have no other choice but to be here because of the economic restrictions put in place by American corporations who are now controlling pretty much everything.
Just to follow up on that, and some real specific things that the Green Party can stand for. Abolition of WTO and any kind of a regime that allows basically corporate governance of the world economy would have a lot to do with what Kat was just talking about. Supporting the International Labor Organization and international labor standards, whereas, you know, the government, Democrats and Republicans for the last 20 years or so have basically been making it easier for corporations and to become more international and make it harder for basically for people to come into this country any other way than illegally. And so that's really what's got to change. And also minimum wage in this country has to be risen up to at least $10 or $12 an hour. And that kind of basic wage floor has to be established worldwide. And then you wouldn't have so many people so desperately trying to get into this country just to work.
Gail, you wanted to answer?
I'll work.
Oh, okay.
Just to put a face on this for us, we were down in El Paso, Texas, and then we went down to Juarez, Mexico. And we met with a professor in El Paso at Bacon College down there who was an expert on South American studies, Mexico, and that kind of thing. And what he said to us is that in 1994, when NAFTA passed, the Mexican government, as coincidence would have it, that same year stopped providing small subsidies to the small farmers in the interior of Mexico. The next year, 15 million people were displaced from their land. 15 million. And they had no place to go but, guess where? To the border where these maquiladoras or multinational factories were going up. And so now these people are working for $3 a shift in a country that's inflation rate is higher than in the United States. And so when we walk the streets of Juarez, they're dusty, kids are dying down there, little babies that are malnourished because they're drinking tainted water, no electricity, no running water. You stand and you look at Juarez and you look across the fence at El Paso, and El Paso isn't that affluent, but it looks like heaven and hell. You know, these people are coming over here because their kids are hungry. And for us not to try and help is a tremendous, tremendous social justice travesty. And we should do everything possible. Our administration, we talk about, we would like to see amnesty, family reunification, and a tremendous thrust to mobilize as much help as possible south of the border to create as much sustainability down there. Because these people, for the most part, they don't want to leave their families, they don't want to leave their communities, they don't want to leave their country. But I'll tell you this much, if Sarah or Jonathan or Joseph are hungry, or starving, as a parent, I'm going to go anywhere to get them food. And for us to be so myopic about that is just...
My answer is that our campaign is about rail, about building high speed rail. That's my standard answer.
Oh, you want to? Okay.
On one side.
Sure.
You know, there are valid solutions to many of these problems facing our country. Unfortunately, it's not in the best interest of the Democrats and Republicans to make this happen, since they profit by the status quo. Throwing money at a solution never really solves the problem. And I want to help the people of the world too. I mean, I really feel bad for these people who can't make ends meet. But it doesn't help anyone if the United States collapses under its own debt. Most of these problems can be fixed with just a change in incentives. We should stop incentivizing people to come across. I'm not in favor of putting up borders and all that sort of thing. It's just going to be a waste of money. But we can solve many of these problems by just changing the incentive structure, as they've done very successfully in many countries in Europe with regards to immigration, the environment, and so on. Thank you.
Next question.
I'm not from the media, so.
Let's leave this for reporters and bloggers. Any further questions? And that, yes.
Well, somebody raised the question of debt. Anyone want to talk about the huge debt we're carrying in the United States? I'll give you an interesting story. I applied for a credit card a couple of months ago, another credit card, which gave me certain advantages. And I paid, and I went out and to activate it. I spent $49 in staples. And then the next month, I always pay my bills online. I forgot I got the new credit card, so I didn't pay the bill. The following month, now $49. My bill came in at $69. And I'm not used to this, but I thought, how the heck are people who are so deep in debt? And I think the average debt is like $14,500 if you spread it per capita. How the hell are you ever going to get out of debt if you're paying interest rates that are as high as the mafia? $20 in 1 month? Are we starting a new enslavement? Is this a new slavery of the 20th century, or 21st century?
Indentured servitude.
Would anyone like to address that? Not my crappy $20, but in general.
Thank you for asking that question. The debt is very serious. It's now at about $9 trillion. And without a doubt, our hard-earned taxpayer dollars and our Social Security money is going to the war. The war is very, very expensive. Speaking as a budget analyst, we have a platform that gets us out of that mess over there. It lets us balance the federal budget. We can't balance the federal budget until we get out of that war, out of that mess. Building high-speed rail will get at the root cause for why we're over there. It's a positive solution that lets us get out of the mess so we can balance the federal budget and pay off that debt. If it grows, we'll only have enough, it'll consume the entire budget. We'll just be paying money on debt, just like you did with your credit card. We have a plan. We need to first install an auditable accounting system at the Pentagon and stop those no-bid, uncontested contracts. We can build rail with the savings. We can, for $100 billion, we can cut our $300 billion import of foreign oil in half. That's our plan, that a positive solution that lets us get out of that mess so that we can pay off the debt, have peace, balance the federal budget, and get our country back into a state of peace.
Go ahead. Another answer similar to the last answer. First of all, we have a new controller for the auditing of our budget sitting right here when I become president, Mr. Terry Campbell. He is an advocate in that, and I support him all the way. And I also support Jail for Rail because the fact is that we do need more trains and high transit. All the other countries in the world are operating high-speed railways, and we're not utilizing that. But let's talk about the debt. First of all, I called on the Bush administration recently openly in front of the Republican National Congressional Committee in Washington in front of their 5,000 donors. I stood up as an independent presidential candidate, and I asked Karl Rove why he hasn't, first of all, explained to the American people that the terrorists came in our country on Bill Clinton's clock, not on George Bush's clock, but George Bush didn't have the unfortunate experience to be able to deal with it. But the fact is that why haven't we called a ceasefire in Iraq immediately and gone back to the Maliki government and negotiate a $1 trillion payback to reduce our debt by way and means of a discounted oil program for the next 20 years to protect us from buying oil, basically to pay ourselves back the money that we spent and the taxpayers spent. And the ceasefire would, of course, stop the loss of lives. Karl Rove adamantly banged his hand on the table and said there would be no ceasefire. Bush 1 didn't do it. Bush 2 is going to finish it. Never recognized the children dying. Never even answered the question about the debt. In addition, the credit card problem. I forgot what happened to usury because as a little boy I grew up with the wise guys. I'm a green wise guy now. I used to be, you know, a young Italian wise guy when I was a kid from Boston, Massachusetts. Now I've become green wise. I use green wise products, but the fact is that the credit card companies unconditionally, irresponsibly have a couple of different opportunities that I feel are illegal. Number one, they are outrageously abusing the usury system and the Treasury. They are taking poor people and bringing them in at 3.9% or 2.9%. And I got a credit card just like you, and they sent me my credit card bill. I was late because I was traveling. I traveled heavily around the world, and it was a new credit card just like you. And they charged me 49% interest. Well, I called that credit card and I told them who I was, and I told them that they were going to be in the newspaper soon about their gouging and taking poor innocent people. Then what they do is, when the other problem you have with the credit card companies is that they charge you penalties for being late. And when you add up all these penalties and all these charges, you are unconditionally right that America is in debt, they can't get out, the people are in debt, we can't get out, and the credit card companies do not care about it. Why? Because they do not have a cap on the interest rates that they can charge. They do not have a cap on the fact of what penalties they can charge. Also, the banks themselves charging overdraft fees and transfer fees and fees and fees and fees. And the fact of the matter is you can't call them on the phone, you can't straighten out your account because everything's automated. They got a system set up so that none of us can get on the telephone and deal with the problem or the issue. So it's become hogwash in a circle, you know what I'm calling. And the fact of the matter is that the credit card companies are legally able to write off a certain proportion of their debt as bad debt. So they're making so much money, so in order to not pay taxes, they like the kids and the guys and the college kids not to pay, go bankrupt, let the debt go, because they get a tax deduction, and then they sell it to a collection agency. And the fact of the matter is that there should be a law in this country pertaining to, number one, who and how and what we do pertaining especially to our youth. Educational debt is crazy. You put a kid out. I didn't have college. I left home when I was a little boy. I couldn't afford it. I had a full scholarship to go to West Point, and I ended up playing semi-pro hockey, and I'm on now a mission. They say Mission Impossible. I grew up with the Red Sox when it was Mission Impossible. Now it's Mission Impossible, because if you look at impossible, it says impossible. The fact of the matter is that this country and our leadership, the Bush-Clinton regime, has ignored the basic principles of protecting us, the people. And I'm one of the people because I feel those credit card charges. I know what it is to have to work and see 60% of my money get taken out by the federal government. The fact is that's why we're together here. We need to stamp our feet, yell loud and clear, and we need to tell all our friends. It's time to put a divide between the Democrats and the Republicans. And as far as the debt's concerned, increase taxes pertaining to import. People want to use our great country to be able to buy their products. They got to import tax has to go up. Stop taxing the American people. Tax the people that want to come here and use our country to get our money. They want to have companies that are selling our jobs overseas. They're putting call centers overseas. You can't even make airline reservations. You're talking to the Philippines. I had a lady yesterday. She told me I couldn't fly here because she didn't even know where it was. The fact of the matter is that they want to have offshore call centers. Guess what? They're going to get taxed for their offshore call centers. And the American people aren't going to get taxed. The people that are abusing our system and the corporations that are abusing our system, they're going to get taxed, not the American people. Thank you very much.
You want to answer? Yeah, I'd like to.
With the debt, the national debt, for us, just in case the organic tomato deal doesn't stretch the entire way, our administration, we propose an end to the space program, as one example. We use the word sustainability a lot within the context of Green Party circles, and you think about it, we're flying to the moon and to Mars and we can't even breathe the air up there. That should be a little hint to us about sustainability on those planets. We're looking for water on Mars, Well, 2/3 of the third world doesn't have safe drinking water. That's just absolutely ludicrous, we think, when it comes to common sense. We would also propose unilateral nuclear disarmament for the United States. We pump billions of dollars into these warheads, and we aim them all over the world, including at places like, wouldn't you know, Iran and North Korea. Yet, we got them aimed at them, and we're saying, but you guys can't have them. I mean, common sense on this one would say, what's up with that? And so we need to get rid of, we think, the nuclear weapons and hope that the rest of the world falls in line as far as doing the right thing. Another thing are the pork barrel projects out of D.C. We think a lot of those need to be eliminated, and we'd like to see a federal government that adopted the principles of voluntary simplicity. Cut back tremendously. The reverse side, as far as making more money, we propose a tremendous federal tax on gasoline. We'd actually like to see the gasoline prices go through the roof, because that would curtail driving tremendously. And we think with global warming gases right now, that's what needs to happen. We also would like to see tolls on the federal highways in order to get people not to drive as much, and if they are going to drive, it's going to cost them. That would also help reverse sprawl. And, among a number of different things, we would actually like to see us sort of thinking outside the box deal here. Why not have a voluntary tax fund for people who wanted to pay more in taxes in order to spend down some of the debt so that the money's freed up from something other than the interest? And I'll give you a real good example as an addendum. We're in Atwood, Kansas, population 1,500 people in the northwest corner of the state. 10 years ago, two bankers in the town started a little benevolent fund for Atwood. And they both kicked in $10,000 apiece. And they challenged the town to donate to the fund to help with city projects that might come up short. Any kind of benevolent thing whatsoever. Even the Boy Scouts going to Des Moines and they're a little short on money. Within a 10-year period of time, in a town of 1,500 people, you know how much money was raised? $1 million. People started leaving money in their wills to the town. They started to give just out of a benevolent spirit. I think, without sounding Pollyannish, you can tap into that in the American public. I mean, when has anybody ever heard, well, okay, here's the taxes, but there's a fund over here if you want to send some more in. You got to give people those kind of options to do the right thing.
You can get rid of all of the pork, all discretionary spending, the entire defense budget, and you still won't balance the budget. And that's the budget that's $9 trillion, not the real budget, not the real deficit. I'm sorry, that's $9 trillion. The real deficit, which is closer to $70 to $100 trillion, because we don't take into account the ramifications of the decisions we make. Regarding what you said about the gasoline, I wouldn't. You use the word increase the price of gasoline. What I would recommend is bringing the cost of gasoline to what it should be, which is closer to, and I'm not saying it should be $13 to $15 a gallon, which is what it should be, but we should increase the price. Again, it comes down to incentives. We are incentivized to make bad decisions as a society. We need to, in order to really tackle the budget deficit problem, we have to look at entitlement spending. It's not fair that one generation receives $6 for every dollar they put in, while our kids will receive about 20 cents for every dollar they put in. Regarding the credit card companies, it's no secret that the Senate Finance Committee is one of the most powerful committees in the Senate when decisions like this happen. Yes, there used to be something called usury rates. Those things went out. A lot of the things that they do today would have been illegal just 10 to 20 years ago. Thank you.
I'd like to just add a couple of footnotes to this great confluence of ideas here. First of all, and to address immigration, immigration is a little historical context, is something that comes up every time that our economy tanks in this country. It's happened over and over for over 100 years. It's been a complaint that you'll find in the newspapers that people suddenly become enraged about. And it's designed to divide us. Once again, I believe in us focusing on our common values. I appreciate Joe's desire with the organic tomatoes at the White House. I disagree with him on the space program. It's a drop in the bucket. What we really need to do is move away from a military economy. We have over $750 billion annual budget for the military to defend us against the two major powers with about $60 billion budgets, China and Russia. Where's all that going? And follow the money trail and you will find the truth in almost every perplexing question that pops into your mind. 2% of the water on this planet, which is mostly water, and we are mostly water, 2% is potable. And we've polluted nearly half of that, if not more. We have real crises to deal with in our lifetimes to sustain life on Earth, because the Earth will still probably be here, but will we, and will our grandchildren, and all that is familiar to them, all the things that were familiar to us, we've watched perish in our lifetime. Probably about 2,000 species a day. We could be one of them. So, and an economic note, I believe that there needs to be a complete restructuring of our economic policy and our foreign policy, which also adds to the immigration issue. It certainly adds to the issues about war and pretty much every other thing that bothers us on a day-to-day basis when we flip on the news. So there needs to be a massive restructuring in regards to the IRS, going back to constitutional government. Congress is supposed to be coining our monies, and I hope to lead to do that. Thank you.